Hi, this is Professor Innes again, and you're on the module starting with epistemology, and your philosopher for this week to do with epistemology is René Descartes. So you're going to deal with him particularly. But before you deal with Descartes, you've got to understand the problem of epistemology. So with the problem of epistemology, as a philosopher, you have been in the big wide world and you've noticed people make all these statements to do with knowledge. Now, the case with knowledge is that it is difficult to say that we have knowledge of a particular thing. And for the philosopher, this is difficult because we have the understanding that we have this mind which claims to have this knowledge, but this mind of ours is not in contact with the physical world, which it claims to know. Now, the situation is that the mind gains all that knowledge through the five senses. The five senses are in touch with the physical world, but that through those five senses we generate that raw data to the mind, and the mind makes sense of that raw data. Yet, this sense we get is sort of second-hand. It's detached from that physical world. Now, fair enough, there's a second-hand attachment, but it is second-hand. It's making sense of raw data. So, if I smell the rose, what I have in my mind is a representation of the smell of the rose. It's not the smell of the rose itself. My nose is the one that has that smell. If I touch something, it's not my fingers that do the reasoning of the touch. So if I touch this table, holding the computer, I think to myself, is this a rough table or a smooth table? It's the mind that makes sense of that raw data. So in that sense, I can't say for one moment that my mind is in touch with that physical world, even though it claims to have that knowledge of the physical world. So our knowledge of the external world, therefore, is held in doubt. We can't consider it to be real as such. We can consider it to be knowledge, but is it real knowledge? Therefore, this detachment therefore provides us with a great deal of problems. So, with that, the philosopher is not simply going to walk away and think, okay, that's a big problem, nothing we can do about it. What we have in this particular course are a number of philosophers, and the one to start with is René Descartes, who's going to attempt to solve that problem. Now, of course, straight away, and from your reading of the text, Descartes is going to fail drastically, just as John Locke's going to fail, just as Berkeley's going to fail, but nonetheless they put forward interesting arguments, and even though their arguments fail, we may say that in the big wide world we use their theories to a certain extent. So the rationalist, therefore, even though the argument fails to say that we have that connection with the external world, we can say maybe parts of rationalism are going to be important. So we'll deal with the argument for rationalism first, very quickly, and then pinpoint maybe there's something of use with Descartes' argument, even though it fails drastically. Right, so with Descartes, you're going to find out that he argues that we gain knowledge through sense experience, but mostly pure abstract reason. So I see something and then I close my eyes, figuratively speaking, and think about it in abstraction. So it's the case, therefore, I see the sun in the sky, I go away and I think about that sun, and then I come up with the understanding that the sun is far larger than it seems, because my sense data has misled me to think it's a few inches across, and it's not a disk in the sky, it's a fiery ball and 93 odd million miles away. So, so in that sense, we are not going to rely upon our sense experience. So our knowledge is gained from pure abstract reasoning. Right, with that, we say to ourselves, okay, that's fair enough, pure abstract reasoning, but Descartes realized the problem straight away in the sense of what's that pure abstract reasoning got to do with the external world? There's still a lack of connection. So Descartes, realizing this problem, introduces the notion of God, and the notion of God, as you're going to read, explains to us that the individual has a connection with the external world because God's been introduced here. God being an all-good God and a powerful God and all that sort of stuff has given us mathematics and physics to understand the external world in a clear and distinct manner, but also has made the external world available to us. So this is God providing us with this ability to understand the external world. And by definition, Descartes puts forward the definition that God would do this. This is what God is about, says Descartes. So, with that, Descartes says that, right, simply, we have built the bridge between our minds and the external world, therefore we know the external world. Of course, there's a big problem with this particular argument, and even though you might have done the reading by now, it might not be too apparent, but Descartes did not exactly explain or prove that God existed. Now, if you don't explain God's existence in this one, or prove that God's existence, I should say, he did explain God's existence by its characteristics, if and only God exists, but he did not prove in the first place God exists. So we've got a problem with his argument. Sounds like a nice one here. Yeah, the abstract, independent, non-human sciences of mathematics and physics, as he believed them to be, will provide us with certain knowledge. But, again, that's theoretical knowledge, and if there's no God to bridge the gap between us and that physical world, then it's just theoretical knowledge, which might have nothing whatsoever to do with the external world. So we have a problem. And in a sense, this problem is that the argument has failed, and primarily failed because Descartes did not prove the existence of God. So keep that in mind when reading through, and you have to critique these arguments just as much as you have to appreciate them in the first place. So you're going to appreciate Descartes' argument by all means. So with that, quickly on to the use of Descartes, even though it failed. Now, we are often misled. He refers to the evil genius, and we're misled by the evil genius. So we out there in the big wide world think to ourselves that there's constantly advertisers who are trying to get us to buy things. So the example I was used in classes as well is that when we go and buy a pizza from, say, places like Walmart, the picture of the pizza on the box is 20 inches across, but the box is only 12 inches across. Yet we're still misled by the picture, which is obviously of a pizza that cannot fit in the box. But we're misled. We let our sense perception get the better of us and buy that pizza, take it home, take it out of the box, and then we're sadly disappointed. Right, of course, mathematics would have informed us straight away that that pizza, the size of it on the picture on the pizza box, cannot possibly be inside the box. So that should have been enough to tell us there that we cannot rely upon our sense experience. So if we could find any examples like that, like that of the pizza box example, then it's simply the case that we are not going to be misled. So maybe Descartes' argument is of use to us, even though it doesn't say we have proof of the external world, yet we can clarify things a lot more in our mind about the external world. Come up with an ability to avoid being misled, for example, or at least know that that thing out there cannot exist as it's purported to exist. So it could be as well with jumbo shrimp. We know quite well there are no such things as jumbo shrimp, yet the advertisement for the restaurant chain says that they do exist. Again, we'll think to ourselves, no, they don't exist. It's just that the advertiser's messing around with us once again. So think about anything here which you can critique and say doesn't possibly exist in that way, and therefore I won't accept it. Right, so that's you and epistemology and Descartes and understood. With these videos, do watch them over and over again if you need to do so, just to clarify the major points. I have not gone through the whole argument. I've just pinpointed those things you need to clarify and understand. Right. One other thing I need to make clear is that when we use hypotheticals, in any situation, whether it's to do with ethics, politics, or now with epistemology, they are purely hypothetical. One is to remain in the hypothetical and not attempt to choose any of the positions held, or change the positions held, or introduce anything new to the hypothetical. So if it's the hypothetical of would you steal to feed your family, and it's based upon an ethical decision making, one doesn't introduce the idea that, hey, right, the shop was giving away free food that day. No, it's simply the case, it's the normal circumstances of would you steal from a shop that's charging for the food to feed your family. So it's a normal situation, so take the hypothetical as that, don't change it when we introduce these hypotheticals. Right, so and another thing, as far as the journal entries, I'm not getting the hang of these journal entries. They were not designed by me. So do your best with them. So as long as you're making entries in there, then you're going to be fine. You'll keep that 150 or whatever you have at the moment. I'm just trying to work out what the point of this is with the journal entries. Again, I didn't design it. It was done by somebody else. I can't redesign it because it will ruin everything and be misleading. So just keep up with making your journal entries, and I will endeavour to devise some method whereby we start to actually discuss matters, which is what the journal entry is supposed to be for. It's your connection with me and my connection with you when discussing philosophy. So we'll devise some method here. In my other classes online, I do use a different method than this one here, but not to worry, we'll do something about it. So keep up with the work, please. Let me know if you need anything. And again, those emails are pretty pointless these days. I don't get to them as much as I probably should, but texting is the way forward. There's a mobile device, whereas the email system is not mobile. So use texting if you can, please. Thank you. Right, so let me know if you need anything, and I'll be here to answer any questions. So speak with you online on the journal. Thank you. Bye.